Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the episodes of a Catch As Catch Can podcast. Its continuing mission to explore strange, nerdy topics, to chat about sports, movies, TV, sci-fi, and so much more. To boldly pod where this nerd has gone before.
Welcome to Boldly Pod. Last week I was joined by my friend Erin, and we had a great discussion about the TV show Star Trek Picard. It was such a great conversation, such a lengthy conversation, that we split it up into two parts. Last week you heard part one. We pick up part two with me asking Erin what she thought about Data re-emerging in Picard. So Erin, take it away. What did you think of Brent Spiner coming back as Data and then being Data's, I guess, brother, quote unquote?
Mm-hmm. It was nice to see Data. Again, as a character. And a lot of people were a little bit salty. Like, online people are a little salty about, like, they didn't like seeing Data, like, visibly. Because clearly Brent Spiner is a human being and he ages.
Right.
Why does Data look different? Why does Data look different? People would be saying. And it's just like, okay, people, like, just suspend your disbelief for 2 seconds, you know. This is a human makeup. He's going to look a little different. CGI can only take you so far. But yeah, no, it was good to see him again, because another one of my favorite characters from Star Trek.
Well, you can blame the latest Star Wars trilogy for everyone having a shit fit about that, pardon my language, but when they did in Rogue One, when they had that CGI Leia turn around at the very end and look like Carrie Fisher when she was, 22 or whatever, making the first Star Wars movie. Yeah.
And here's a fun fact. If we can veer off of our Star Trek podcast for a Star Wars moment, hang on to your hats, everyone. Veering over to Star Wars for 1 second. Here's a fun fact. When we saw Rogue One in the theater, we watched it, and that was one of the last scenes, right, with Carrie Fisher. We walked out, and I opened my phone, and that was like just half an hour after Carrie Fisher had her, like, initial heart issue on the airplane. And, you know, the news is all just like, oh my gosh, Carrie Fisher, she's in so much trouble. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, 'cause you just walk out of that whole thing, you know, the whole Rogue One, here she is, she's super young, and then you walk out and it's like, bam, reality, and you're like, oh, my heart.
Wow.
So yeah, that was tough. Anyway.
That, yeah, did it almost make you want to walk right back in? And not that she was in that movie, but...
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily, even though I enjoyed Rogue One, clearly she wasn't a main character in that film, but, yeah, it was a hard hit to hear that right then. And, I guess it would have been worse if it was a couple months down the road when she did actually pass, but the timing was really strange for me.
Yeah.
That way. I just saw her on the screen. She's fine. Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's definitely a heart in the hands moment for sure.
Yeah.
What, were there any next generation characters you were mildly disappointed you didn't get to see in a cameo in this series?
I would say, I mean, as far as characters in the show, I get my favorite characters were always Picard and Data and Beverly Crusher. I enjoyed a great deal, and Q. Q would have added a whole nother. We thought things were messed up and complicated as is. Inject Q into this business, and we're just going to be on a roller coaster.
See, that's exactly why I asked you this question, because the book and the entire Next Generation series with Q, first episode, last episode, and he didn't appear in this series. So I'm wondering if he's going to be in series 2.
We shall see. The actor that plays him is still alive, correct?
Yeah, John Delancey is still alive.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see.
Even though Q is omnipotent, he is going to look quite a bit different now than he did back then. Just keep that in mind, people that had an issue with Data.
Well, I think people understand that humans age. I guess it's just the whole, yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah.
But
people would expect Android to be the same. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes, but Q is omnipotent, so
yeah, he's a wild card.
Right. I suppose he can look like what he wants. Was there anything else you wanted to cover about the series before we sort of wrap shop?
Well, I don't know. I feel like there was so much to unpack. I'm sure we're missing millions of things. Oh, here's something that actually Patrick, my husband, noticed, and I did not notice until he brought it up, was that the ship, La Serena, looks like Eddie Van Halen's guitar.
Okay, I'm going to have to go back and watch that again now.
Yeah, because he said, oh, that looks totally like Eddie Van Halen's guitar, but they painted that ship up, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I see that. And we Googled it the next day, and it's kind of like an Easter egg. Yeah, it's like the Frankenstrat or Frankenstein guitar that Eddie Van Halen designed. And we're like, okay, I guess that's the thing.
I'm terrible with Easter eggs, so don't even ask me about those because I always miss them.
Well, I mean, it wasn't so much an Easter egg, but just like a bonus if you're familiar with Van Halen, I guess.
Well, going back to the Star Wars, people always threw out the R2-D2 Easter egg and stuff in the Star Trek reboots, and it's like, yeah, I missed it. I didn't even see it.
I don't remember seeing it either. If that makes you feel better. I don't remember seeing it at all.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Thanks.
So I had a couple of gripes. If anyone's tuning in to hear just kind of needless random gripes, I'm your woman. Here we go. The term organics that the Sims use towards flesh and blood people, right. It made them seem more like fruits or vegetables. Just the organics, and I'm like, who came up with that? That's trying too hard. That's just, yeah, let's not do that. And another random gripe would be the continuous swiping of transparent computing devices. Okay, this is the future. This is how you do it. We understand, but let's move on. Let's see something other than just hands swiping, projected computer things.
I thought that a lot too about all the computer stuff, right in your face and whatnot. I think at a certain point I got used to it, so I didn't.
Yeah, and it's it would go both ways. You just get used to it, or you're like me, and you're like, they're doing this again. We get it. It's the future. We get it. We get it. Can we have less of the swipey? Plus, it makes everyone look so smart. Goddamn them. No one's that smart. They can do this all in a matter of seconds. He's not, people that need help with technology like most of us do.
Do you think maybe him being in his holographic house on the ship was a nod from him being older and staying true to that, and then stepping out and having all the holographic stuff and the... Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's more at home there, with his cup of Earl Grey. And Decaf now? Was that a thing? Did you order decaf?
Right.
Which was kind of funny. But yeah.
I mean,
I think that's
what's the point
Go
of
ahead.
even having coffee or tea if it's not going to be caffeinated? But that's just me.
You're just used to it. It's the the habit of drinking it, the taste, the whatever. Maybe you don't need the caffeine, but you want that cup of Earl Grey.
Were there any other gripes that you had?
Being more gripes? Oh, I'm sure. Another gripe. And I did, not to say that I'm all gripes. I was entertained by programs, but, sometimes nerds have gripes. So, Narek, the coined, abusive Romulan boyfriend of Soji, you never really know what happened to him. I mean, in the whole of the storyline, he's there and then he's just kind of not there. And we got done watching it. I'm like, what happened to abusive Romulan boyfriend? And Patrick's like, I don't know. I guess he went back with everyone else. I'm like, well, we don't know, but no one said. I didn't see his ship go. I mean, he's sneaky. He's weird. Maybe he's sticking around on, Android planet, which I forget the name of. So.
I kind of thought that about Commander O too. It's like she's the head of Starfleet security, and then next thing you know, she's on a Romulan warbird. Like what? She just pack up and leave?
Yeah, I guess it was like, my guys, I got some secret undercover stuff to do. See you later. And it was kind of funny too, where everyone gangs up on her and we're going to have to ask you to turn this around. We have, all these starships behind us that are going to open fire on you. And she's just kind of like, almost like decades of work for her to, try to squash the AI uprising. And she's just like, okay, bye. Like, she'll be back. The threat has not been quelled. She'll be back. The AI lives, so she will be back.
Yeah, it's like Picard 2, the search for AI or whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a...
It was.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it was poignant, though, at the end, having Data actually, like, his consciousness be terminated.
Did you?
And that whole lesson of, being human is only special because it ends, But that probably would have hit more. It would have hit home more had the series The Good Place not just instilled that lesson in all of us, not like 3 months prior. Did you watch The Good Place?
I did not, but I know the reference behind it.
Yeah, I mean that's basically the whole gist of the last, season or whatever. Like, hey, that's the lesson. And so wow, what a good show. I took that lesson to heart. Wow, how great. And then it's basically like, here comes Picard with the same exact lesson when it comes to Data. I'm like, okay, that's cool though. Good for you, Data. I'm glad that you realized this. So it's almost like that would have been better had I not just ingested that lesson a few months before. But no, it was good. And that was the poignant and trivia in that episode when Picard is unplugging Data's consciousness, and reciting some probably famous poem or that I don't know. Some poem or sonnet that I have no idea what it is, but it's beautiful. He's pulling the plugs out and they're playing in the background. They're playing Blue Skies, the song.
Yes.
That's actually Issa Brune is singing that song.
I did not know that she was singing it, but
yeah.
I was going to bring up the whole Blue Skies analogy to not insurrection, but I'm having a mental block on the movie now, but let me back up my screen so I can get this right. But the last Next Generation movie, which was come on screen, was Nemesis. Data sang that at Troy and Riker's wedding. He sang Blue Skies. And that's sort of why they played that when he got shut off. Which cracks me up because most Trekkies really pan Nemesis as the nail in the coffin of the Next Generation, but I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Should I watch it? What's your take?
I like the movie. It could have been better. I just think the studio wanted another movie so much after the Insurrection debacle that they kind of pushed it a little too fast.
They rushed it. I believe the only Star Trek Next Generation movie that I actually watched was First Contact.
And?
Oh, I loved it. This was a very long time ago.
So
when did that come out? 95 or 90? It's been a long time.
96, I think.
So, yeah, that was the year I graduated high school. So it's been a while. But I was the Trekkie. I was the Next Generation Trekkie all through high school. So that was probably, and then I probably watched that film and was kind of like, okay, moving on with my life. Well, my daughter was born in 1997. So that's when my sharp, there was a very sharp decline in the amount of entertainment that I was consuming. So that's probably kind of where things dropped off. But I really liked First Contact. I remember liking it a lot. But that whole just Borg thing in general, I thought was amazing.
I do too. I like the whole Borg because they blew that cube up in First Contact and then I'm forgetting the episode, not all good things, but Best of Both Worlds, where they meet at Wolf 359. And, I mean, you knew those cubes had to be just floating around space somewhere, so something had to happen.
Yep. But yeah, it was when I saw, just really liking kind of the Borg storyline and stuff, and when I saw then figured out, I can't remember how they exactly executed it. They were on some sort of a quote-unquote ship, and then I think they kind of backed out slowly, and you could see that it was a Borg cube, and I was like, ooh.
Well, see,
something of that nature. I was like, oh, yes, look at the Borg cube.
That is one thing that I tell people that pan on Voyager, and we'll be completely honest here, most people are guys, and they pan on Voyager because it had a woman captain, which I thought Kate Mulgrew did awesome, but that's just me. But one of the great things about Voyager is they really dig deep into the mystique and the storyline of the Borg, because the Voyager runs into the Borg a lot. So, hey,
okay.
There
so
you
what
go.
I'm learning from this podcast is I probably should watch Voyager.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you wanted to learn more about the Borg, then watch Voyager.
Okay.
And that's
that will make sense.
And you'll enjoy it,
and
Bob.
that's the lesson. That's the lesson from the Picard podcast. Watch Voyager.
Exactly. So
it's no Voyager.
So any final words, any recaps about the series before we close shop?
Final words. No, I mean I'm sticking to my 7 out of 10. 7.5 if I'm feeling generous, but kind of 7 out of 10. It was interesting, well done, shot well. Most of the acting was adequate to superb. Adequate isn't a diss. Adequate is just like, it's good.
It's better than passable.
better than possible. It's adequate, And maybe people I think really like the character of Raffi more than I did. So I'm thinking maybe if they give her some better, I don't know, something better to do other than drink and smoke and be a failed mother, maybe I would. I don't know, like her more. But I mean, the actress was really good. I mean, I think she did a great job. She was better than mediocre. We'll say that. Her name Gail Hurd, is that her name?
It was humanizing her.
What's that?
It was humanizing her. It was. Everyone complains about everyone being robots in Star Trek, but she had faults.
No, good. I just think she had more. It didn't seem like they had a lot of good. I mean, there wasn't enough good to counter all the kind of, how did she make it this far if she's got so many problems, and I know a lot of it since her, Starfleet exit and all that, and her life kind of went downhill, and I get that, but maybe I need more of her doing well with Starfleet to kind of counter that, or some sort of more of a backstory, or I know they did a little bit, but it wasn't a lot.
Right.
Or maybe something more redeeming in the future, She was just kind of a character that was there, and I didn't like her, but she wasn't my favorite. But, yeah, hard push on Agnes, though. She's one of my favorite characters.
I think you've kind of spelled that out during this podcast.
Hey, I have to talk about something. Right?
And
I feel like it has a lot of gray. So, I have to counter it with great performances, which clearly Patrick Stewart, always great. Hey, we didn't touch on where we talked about, I know, you're probably wanting to close this podcast.
No, go ahead. Keep talking.
The whole, when we brought up the Romulan warrior nuns, the whole Elnor character. He had the one single line, to choose to live, or whatever it was, and that's all they gave him to say. He didn't have much else to do. He could have been a really great character, and he fought for some people, and that's, he trying to make friends. He was trying to make friends with 7 of 9 and Raffi at the end there, but they didn't give him a whole lot else to really do besides hang around and I don't know. I thought they could have fleshed him out a little better, but there was already so much going on. It's kind of like, well, what can we expect? They only have time to do so much. But it's almost like maybe he didn't even really need to be there. Maybe you have a different take on it.
I had wondered if that character was created because Patrick Stewart was too old to do any of the fighting. So that was kind of the way they remedied that. So he didn't have a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, but he didn't seem to do a whole lot of fighting on Picard's behalf either. Really. It was was it more than one battle?
I mean, it was at the beginning when he accepted his offer where he cut the guy's head off. Mm-hmm. And then other than that, he was fighting with 7 of 9 and Hugh.
Yeah, so I guess they initially brought him on for that purpose, and then he just started fighting for other people. But yeah, at the end, it seems like they're kind of setting it up for Raffi to kind of be a surrogate mother. When they were grieving the quote-unquote death of Picard, and I was like, oh, she is having a, son to comfort, and he's, didn't really have parents, so I guess this is working out if that's kind of their dynamic. So we'll see. But
well, speaking of the whole grieving scene, I wondered that they showed those two, and then they showed the captain and 7 of 9 drinking whatever it was they said they were drinking. I forget now, but
it was supposed to be some kind of alcohol, but if we're being honest, it kind of looked like Kirkland. It looked like they were drinking shampoo. It was like green and swirly and kind of thick.
It was it was a Romulan ale for synthetics. I don't know.
Yeah, something. But yeah, they were kind of setting that up like they might be really good friends in the future.
Do you think they'll all be back for the next series, or do you think 709 will disappear again?
Oh, I don't really see her disappearing. I mean, at least not if the writers have anything to do about it, because it seemed like the little that I've read about it, that she was really, happy to be back and doing stuff in the Star Trek universe again. And I think the writers, if they know it's good for them, knows that they shouldn't write out a fan favorite character if she's willing to be on. So I think she'll be there.
Let's hope so. So you will definitely watch season 2.
Yeah. Yep. Gotta find out what happened to the abusive Romulan boyfriend. Like, where was he hiding out? Did he really go back with the rest of the Zatvash, or did he go and is he hiding out somewhere else, stabbing synthetic eyeballs out somewhere? I don't know.
And you got to keep having a character named Narek, because our mutual friend Karen, well, there you have it.
Yep. I kept thinking about that when they say his name, and I'm like, that's awfully close to Narek and Nirak. It's like, that's too close.
Well, it's funny because I always call her Narek anyways, and she's like, it's not Narek, it's Nirak. I'm like, I know, but it's easier to say. So,
yeah, but I gotta find out what happens to him. So.
Good point. All right, well, we'll close shop. So thank you again for being on here. I always appreciate it, and you are always welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry if I was kind of all over the place. I'm still kind of indulging in the whole pre-podcast libation. So if I literally become uncontrollable, like, you can't set me on a timeline and I jump too much, just tell me, hey, knock off the alcohol before you do a podcast. So you said.
You listen to enough of my shows and podcasts to know that I always have a libation in my hand. And that's going to wrap up this episode of Too Boldly Pod. We hope you enjoyed our conversation about Star Trek Picard. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share about Picard or about how great Erin is, let us know on Facebook or Twitter at Too Boldly Pod. And until next time, get me a tea. Earl Grey. Hot.
WLLP Spock Rock Radio.